मेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविन्द्य शिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते.
Continuities of social mobility in traditional and modern society in India. 2 case studies of caste mobility in Bengal. Hitesranjan, Sanyal. It is widely believed that traditional society in India, and for that matter in Bengal, was not dynamic in character. However, almost all the texts containing information on the caste system of Bengal, these have been referred to and discussed below, bear ample evidence of caste mobility within the limits of the local hierarchy. Although reliable historical sources on the caste system in pre-19th century Bengal are scarce, fortunately, it is possible to arrange them in the chronological order and thus obtain a picture of the changes in the structure and composition of the various levels of the local hierarchy of castes over a period of time. There are also many modern works on the castes of Bengal, including the decennial census reports from 1872 to 1931, which from 1901 tended to become almost caste oriented. जब हम बोलते हैं कि ब्रिटिश ने casteism rigid कर दिया, this is what we mean. Apart from the details of modern caste movements, further evidence of social mobility in the 18th century can be gleaned from these texts. In these volumes, it is seen that several castes unknown to the earlier chroniclers had found place in the different ranks of the local hierarchy. In the modern period, numerous movements were organized by various castes and subcastes aiming at the upgradation of their caste status or recognition as an entirely separate caste in the case of the subcastes. Okay, entirely separate caste. Put together, the testimonies of the texts referred to above adequately bring out the fact of social mobility in the form of emergence of new castes and the movements of individual castes from one rank to the other within the hierarchical caste structure as a persistent factor in the social life of Bengal. It is of course evident that many case studies of social mobility have been made for different regions of India, for instance by Bernard Cohn, Arvind Shah or Burton Stein. This paper will supplement their general findings by presenting 2 more case studies about the Bengal region. This region has not figured very much in recent anthropo-historical work, with the notable exception of the frontier tract of Manbhum between Bengal and Bihar, studied by Surojit Singho. However, this paper will also bring out an element in the movements of social mobility, not very marked in other papers written about the historical background of the subject, that the factors for successful change of status worked in a sort of chronological and historical progression which compounded different forces, such as the change of occupation, new status created by the acquisition of tracts of land, ostentatious display of wealth, and the capacity to prevail on Brahmins to validate the new ritual status. The changes describe, like exactly what's happening today in Bengal as well. All the biggest temples in Kolkata, their Purohits, all devout Hindus, all of them are Trinamool supporters because all of them like to be close to power. The changes described took place only when there was a corporate group movement which desired it, rather than as a result of the aspirations of small family groups. Okay, interesting sentence. Corporate group movement which desired that movement. It is the view of Stein in particular that such corporate movements for mobility became possible only in the modern period, in which the development of technology and mass media has made group or mass movements possible. Stein specifically says that, okay, so this is not the same Hitesranjan channel. Stein specifically says that while it is possible to identify social mobility as a significant dynamic element in ancient and medieval Indian society, this mobility cannot be generally characterized as corporate mobility. It is usually difficult to identify specific and effective ethnic aggregates. For example, jatis, which are endogamous units in Indian caste organization, jatis in the materials with which the medieval historian must work, neither the facilities nor the need for corporate mobility of the contemporary sort existed during the medieval period. It has also been shown by Cohn and Shah that even previous to the British unification of India, certain new political elites like the leaders of the Bhumihar Brahmins, Rajputs and Patidars could raise their caste status to parity with their new political power. But in this case also, corporate mobility of large groups including common people are not referred to. It will be shown in this paper that apart from the mobility possible for small family units or for elite groups, it was also possible even before the modern period for the movements of corporate mobility of large groups, which included ordinary people, to develop. Thus, it will be seen that movements which are normally linked in writings of Western historical sociology with the process of modernization in Indian society were possible in the traditional Indian society as well. Before getting into the discussion on social changes in terms of caste mobility, it is useful to have a brief sketch of the traditional caste hierarchy in Bengal for proper understanding of the changes. Practically speaking, the Hindus of Bengal are divided between the Brahmins and the Shudras, the two other groups of the Varna system, namely the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, being represented by a handful of scattered migrants. Okay, so I am a handful of scattered migrant. Generally speaking, the Brahmins of Bengal belong to two major varieties, the clean and the unclean. The unclean varieties include the Patit Brahmins, who polluted themselves by violating the code of conduct of the highest caste, and the Varna Brahmins, who minister to the unclean Shudra castes. The Shudras incorporate a number of endogamous groups called Jatis, who can be broadly divided into the following varieties. Okay, this is pretty well detailed. I had many questions regarding these things for many days. I'll get my answers now. Clean Shudras. Castes that enjoy the right to offer drinking water to the clean Brahmins and get the services of clean Brahmins in religious functions are considered to be clean Shudras. Apart from the Vaidyas and Kayasthas, the clean Shudra castes of Bengal are grouped under the common denomination of Navashakha Shudra. Okay, so new branch Shudra, Navashakha. The Sadgopas and the Tilis, whose cases have been studied in the present paper, are Navashakhas, enjoying the rank of a clean Shudra. They are also known as Jalacharaniya, that is, whose water is acceptable to a clean Brahmin for the purpose of drinking. Jalacharaniya castes, which degraded Brahmins, since these castes are not entitled to receive the services of clean Brahmins in religious functions and have degraded Varna Brahmins as priests, they rank below the Navashakhas. Two castes, for example the Gopas, who figure prominently in the case of Sadgopas and the Mahishyas, belong to this group. Unclean Shudras, castes whose water is not acceptable to a clean Brahmin, are considered to be unclean Shudras. This group includes the Telis, whose history and position in the society have been taken up for discussion in the course of the study of the case of the Tilis. And such a Teli got murdered because he defended Nupur Sharma. And हम तो उसके बाद तेली को नहीं बोल सकते हैं कि तुम मंदिर में मत घुसो. Degraded and untouchable castes. These form the lowest stratum of the caste hierarchy. Although all the non-Brahmin endogamous jatis are taken to be Shudras for technical reasons, each of these jatis has its own place in the local variant. Local variant. This is a very important phrase. There are always local variants to everything we are talking about in Hinduism. Each of these jatis has its own place in the local variant of caste hierarchy in Bengal, in addition to its Shudra identity. In other words, although the fourfold Varna system of caste hierarchy has always been considered as the model of reference, individually each non-Brahmin jati forms as much a part of the caste hierarchy as the Brahmin. Thus, in the context of the Hindu society in Bengal, caste means all the non-Brahmin jatis as well as the Brahmins, who are often referred to as a jati. Almost all the castes in Bengal are divided into several endogamous subcastes known as Sreni or Samaj. In relation to the general caste hierarchy, the Srenis or Samajas of a particular caste enjoy equal rank and prestige. But internally, there might be an order of precedence. Okay? In relation to the general caste hierarchy, those Sreni and Samajas of a particular caste enjoy equal rank and prestige, but internally there might be an order of precedence. The earliest comprehensive account of the structure and composition of the caste hierarchy in Bengal can be found in a Sanskrit text called Brihadharma Puranam. The Purana can be tentatively dated to the 13th century. According to the Purana, all the castes of Bengal, other than the Brahmins, were of mixed origin and therefore entitled to be ranked as Shudras. A vertical ranking of the castes in the Purana divides the Shudras into three distinct groups. For example, Uttam Shankar, highest stratum of the Shudras of mixed origin; Madhyam Shankar, higher than the lowest but lower than the highest stratum of the Shudras of mixed origin; and Adham Shankar, lowest stratum of the Shudras of mixed origin. Another early source of information on the castes of Bengal is the Brahma Vaivarta Puranam, which is believed to have been composed in a period not earlier than the 12th century and not later than the 14th century. The scheme of caste ranking in the Purana is similar to that of the former text. That this scheme of caste ranking had undergone considerable changes by the second half of the 16th century can be understood from the evidence of the Chondi Mongol of Kavingankan Mukundam Chakraborty, written in about 1589 AD. Although Mukundam did not make any attempt to classify the castes by locating them in the different ranks of the caste hierarchy, it is possible to draw up a broad outline of the order of precedence prevalent in the second half of the 16th century from the data supplied by him. It appears that some of the castes had improved upon their positions in the caste hierarchy which were assigned to them by the Puranas. The Kayasthas, who are identical with the Karanas of the Puranas, or the Karanas of Puranas, were ranked with some of the trading and artisan castes as Uttam Shankar Shudra in the Brihad Dharma Puranam. In the Chondi Mongol of Mukundaram, okay, I pronounced it wrong. Mukundaram, the Kayasthas are distinguished from the trading and artisan castes and placed above them. Similarly, the Ambastha Vaidyas, whom the Purana ranked as Uttam Shankar Shudra, are placed between the Vaishyas and Kayasthas in the scheme of Mukundaram. It may be said that by placing the Vaidyas and Kayasthas below the Vaishyas, Mukundaram has indicated that ritually they are Shudras. Their position is probably due to the fact that the Vaidyas and Kayasthas had arisen above the functional and trading castes in popular estimation and succeeded in creating a new stratum in the caste hierarchy. तो इतना अगर बार बार चेंज हुआ ही है तो अभी भी तो थोड़ा चेंज तो होगा ही वैसे भी, और जस्ट बिकॉज चेंज हुआ है देयरफॉर इट्स अनएक्सेप्टेबल, ये आर्ग्यूमेंट हिस्टोरिकली ही करेक्ट नहीं है. देयर हैड बीन चेंजेस इन द ऑक्यूपेशन ऑफ सम ऑफ द कास्ट्स. Brihadharma Purana names a caste named Tailika whose occupation was trading in betel nuts. Mukundaram knew no such caste. In this time, the trade of the Tailika was a part of the occupation of the Tambulis. Tambul means tobacco, right? Tambulis who combined this trade with their traditional occupation of selling betel leaves. Yeah, Tambul is pan pata. On the other hand, new castes have emerged. One such caste is the oil pressing Kalus, who had penetrated into the occupation of the traditional oilmen, the Telis. In other cases, so whatever the profession, that becomes their caste, okay? So my caste at the moment, I don't even know what my jati is, but my caste at the moment would therefore be musician, Sangitagya, Sangeetkar, yeah, Kalakar, Fankar. No, Fankar is fun is I think Urdu or Arabic. In other cases, a section of a particular caste had abandoned their traditional occupation and switched over to a new one. The case of the Gopas, the pastoral caste, is an example. Mukundaram noted a section of this caste being engaged in agricultural pursuits and trade in cash and food crops. James Wise's notes on the races, castes and trades of Eastern Bengal, H.H. Risley's The Tribes and Castes of Bengal, and the decennial census reports from 1872 to 1931 provide us with exhaustive information on the caste system of Bengal. These works adequately bring out that social mobility expressed through the emergence of new castes, changes in occupation, rise in popular estimation, and attempts made by various castes and subcastes to achieve better position in the hierarchy had always been a continuous interrelated process in action. क्या बात है? In Risley's book, one comes across such castes as the Sadgopas and Madhunapits. Okay, guys, therefore, some Bengali friends who are regular viewers of my channel, therefore you see, we might have gotten one thing wrong. Not that we reached a consensus, but I was under the impression more or less that it is because CPIM ruled West Bengal for so long, and because they tried to kick out any Hinduness from society. As an extension of that, casteism has actually no existence in West Bengal today, which is actually incorrect. Caste mobility has always been so common and frequent in Bengal. Therefore, casteism is not prevalent in Bengal and the credit does not lie with CPIM. तो एक चीज का मैंने सोचा क्रेडिट दूंगा CPIM को, वो भी गया. Interesting. Let me check some comments now. Jati isn't ethnicity? No, apparently it's profession now. Let me check some comments now. I need a break from reading this paper. Bangali Jati. No. Jati can't be Bengali because the rigid linguistically differentiated Bengali has appeared after the state was divided on linguistic lines. How can my Jati be Bengali? Again, I will say, Bajna Padi Pangwa Khale, Bhushukutu Aj Bengali Bhoili. This was my language, which would be understood by everyone in the Bengal, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand region, Bangladesh. So, who is this specifically Bangali Jati? Read my Europe Jati comments. I can't scroll. আবার লিখে দে এখানে অনেক আজকে পড়া বাকি তো okay bubble is saying, for example, word chamar comes from chamar, people who worked in leather tanneries. Yeah, in Bengali we call it chamra. Skin is chamra. Handling animal hide would have carried with it an impure connotation in the context of religious rituals. Yeah, just like there is in Japan itself. Japan is very in a casteism sense. Japan still stays away from people who handle leather. But in modern world with better sanitation and machinery in use, this is no longer relevant. Exactly. Word chamar comes from chamri. Yeah. In Bengal, chamra. Okay. In Risley's book, one comes across such castes as the Sadgopas and Madhunapits, none of whom can be found among the castes mentioned by Mukundaram or in the list of the castes incorporated in Bharat Chandra Roy's Anandamangal. Okay, so many castes have been born and have even disappeared. So many jatis. Okay, so how can my jati be Bengali? Risley also refers to the cases of the Halik Kaivartas, Shahas and Tilis who are trying to break away from the parent castes, the Kaivartas, Sunris and Telis respectively. Okay, oh no, oh my god. Okay, so this Sunri jo hai, this it's pronounced as Shuri in Bengali. Okay, because they are saying that these specific surnames, okay, or these specific castes or jatis, Halik Kaivartas were trying to break away from Kaivartas, Shahas were trying to break away from Shuris, Tilis were trying to break away from Telis. Okay, so now the thing is that the Shahas of West Bengal who were here from before partition as well, they are still Shuris. Okay, they are traditionally alcohol sellers. But whereas my family is from Bangladesh and we are not traditionally alcohol sellers, and therefore we don't get the scheduled caste certificate as well. So therefore, you see, either we were historically something else, or we were the ones, my family's ancestors Shahas were the ones who were trying to break away from Shuris because they just did not want to sell alcohol. Okay, so so there was so much diversity even among the Shaha Shuris. Okay, so the Shahas here, they decided that no, we are fine with being Shuris. The Shahas of those places in Bangladesh region, they decided no, we are not going to sell alcohol because they were living beside rivers. So they were going around selling things on boats, traveling across the Padma River in order to achieve a higher rank higher than the existing one, right? In each case, the pretending, but therefore the fun of history is that the Shuris who decided we don't need to, the Shahas who decided that we don't have to go away from Shuris, who kept selling alcohol, who have scheduled caste certificates, they are the ones who were not affected by partition and who are pretty richer. Okay, so the Shahas who decided that we are going to break away from this low position and not be Shuris, they were the ones who suffered and became poorer because of not selling alcohol. In each case, the pretending group had abandoned the traditional occupation of the caste. Okay, इसके लिए CPM नहीं लगा, इसके लिए wokeism नहीं लगा. The pretending group had abandoned the traditional occupation of the caste and switched over to a comparatively lucrative one, incentive, which had helped them in achieving a better economic position. तो इतना practical, सुंदर, flexible समाज है, इसको काहे बिगड़ाना? Beverly, in his report of the census of Bengal 1872, and Wise, in his book mentioned above, noted that the Telis were trying to establish themselves as a separate caste and achieve a higher social status than the Telis. Tili and Teli alag ho gaya. Okay. The Namashudros, who were actually Chandals, were found making attempts to rise in social estimation. During the 1901 census, the Halik Kaivartas claimed to be Mahishyas and forcefully advanced their demand of being accepted as Mohishyo. Further details on these castes and subcastes can be found in the census reports referred to above. All of these problems could be solved by just ignoring or giving incentives to ignore what is your caste based on your birth. So far as caste ranking is concerned, some of the modern works are equally exhaustive. In his The Tribes and Castes of Bengal, Risley described the system of ranking and tried to locate the position enjoyed by each individual caste in the local hierarchy. In 1901, the census authorities headed by Risley made the painstaking attempt to fix the scale of precedence in the caste hierarchy on the basis of what they described as the quote-unquote Hindu public opinion of the present day. तो अभी तो हिंदू पब्लिक ओपिनियन है राम मंदिर. The results of this investigation in Bengal has been incorporated in the 1901 census report of Bengal. Mukundaram's scheme of caste ranking being a broad outline of the hierarchy, it is extremely difficult to get a clearer picture of the changes in the composition of the various levels of the caste hierarchy that occurred between the second half of the 16th century and the modern works and reports. In this short historical survey of caste mobility in Bengal, it is found that the caste mobility was expressed in the forms of A. Emergence of new caste. Emergence of new caste ho raha hai bhai. Rise of a particular caste in popular estimation and the consequent addition of new stratum to the hierarchy. C. Deviation of a section of a particular caste from the traditional occupation of the caste and subsequent formation of new sreni or samaj within the parent caste. And D. Movement organized by a particular subcaste for recognition as a separate caste and achievement of a status higher than that of the parent body in the caste hierarchy. The factor of mobility, however, is best represented by the emergence of a new caste because the formation of new caste involves The factor of mobility, however, is best represented by the emergence of a new caste. Okay? Oh, अच्छा. तो मोबिलिटी का प्रमाण तो सबसे बड़ा प्रमाण यही है कि नॉट जस्ट कास्ट, इस कास्ट से उस कास्ट में जर्नी हो रहा है, नया कास्ट आविष्कार हो रहा है. Because the formation of new castes involves a specific occupational background, recognition as a caste by the greater society, and acquisition of a distinct ritual status in relation to the caste hierarchy. So you see, even today, first of all, ignore birth-based caste, but even today there is a scope for coming up with new names for different castes. So IT professionals are a different caste altogether. Politicians are probably even a different caste altogether, because exactly politics in itself did not, who will get positions of power did not exist in those days. So Kshatriya would be a great king, soldier who fights with his hands, etc. and an administrator. Brahmins would be amatyas, administrators and advisors, etc. But specifically politics के लिए एक अलग caste का भी नाम हम बना ले सकते हैं, because that was happening in 15th-16th century Bengal. For the present, that is the examination of the process of social mobility in Bengal. Therefore, the instances of the formation of new castes offer a broader field of study. From among those castes which appeared in the list of Mukundaram or in the modern works, the author intends to concentrate on the Sadgopas and the Tilis for the following reasons. Because these two castes climbed up to the respectable Navashakha status in the caste hierarchy. The Sadgopas being mostly concentrated in the southwestern Bengal, so that is the region where BJP is very strong today, the Rari Bongo. The Sadgopas being mostly concentrated in southwestern Bengal, okay, which is called Gutkha Bihari by Bengali pride people. Even southwestern Bengal is called that way. So they and the Tilis being diffused almost all over Bengal, a study of these two castes would help us to trace the course of caste mobility at the regional level, as well as a wider movement spreading all over Bengal. All over Bengal meaning entire Bangladesh. Nehru Gandhi lineage is birth-based casteism. Exactly. That's a monarchy. The Gujarati Shah comes from Sahukar, which means trader. And yes, Shahas are also trader. Currently, West Bengal government is the Shuri caste. You see, files, Shah is a Persian title like Shah of Iran, but see, pre-Islamic Arabia, or even when Islam has newly come about, even in those days, there was so much going back and forth between these lands, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Gujarat, okay, because of sea routes or because of land. It is not surprising that the surnames also traveled, okay. So, the Shah of Iran does not necessarily have to come from a family of kings for 2000 years, right? Whoever was the Shah of Iran, whoever got the surnames of Shah in Iran, they also might have been traders. How do we know? So Dada, you and Amit Shah are not related, but yes, we are all Vaishyas though. Amit Shah, Ankit Shah. Are Shaha and Shah related, as in Amit Shah? Yes, it is related. Both are Vaishyas. Both are the trading communities, trading castes only. Sadgopas. The Sadgopas are universally considered to be a purified section of the pastoral Gopa caste, popularly known as Goala. So the Goel and Goyal surnames of non-Bengalis. Okay, Sitaram Goel. So Sitaram Goel would theoretically be a Sadgopa. Although there is no concrete historical data to prove that it is really so, and a Sadgopa would invariably resent such a suggestion, there are some circumstantial evidences which seem to attest the validity of the popular belief. First, the very name of the caste indicates that the Sadgopas, Sat meaning pure, better, and Gopa, are a part of the Gopas. Sat being the adjective to the noun Gopa. Acha? So Kaisa Gopa ke Sat Gopa. Sadgopas may be taken as a group of the Gopas possessing qualifications and enjoying a better status, enough to warrant the prefix of the adjective. Shadgop. Second, one of the most important settlements of the Sadgopas, which is also a renowned seat of their political power, is known as Gopabhum. That is the country of the Gopas. Gopbhum. Kotha hai Gopbhum? Third, although agriculture is the only occupation that the Sadgopas acknowledge for themselves, and they are commonly known as agriculturalists, Gopbhum was more pastoral than agricultural even in the early years of the present century. In fact, pastoral pursuits still form a part of the occupation of the Sadgopas. Fourth, one of the most revered deities of Amragar, the seat of the principal ruling house of Gopbhum, is Dugdheshwara Shiva. That is the Shiva, the Lord of Milk. Okay, so yeah, associated with cows. Lastly, however, such vehemence there may be in the Sadgopas' denial of any connection with the Gopas, the legends they preserve narrating the origin of their caste bluntly bear out the common origin of the two castes. So Sadgopas, Gopas, Goyal are all same. According to the ये तो यादव के भी साथ हो गए. According to the legend recorded by Risley, the Sadgopas were originally a pastoral people and have a common descent with the Gopas. They are descended from the from one Kalu Ghosh. Yeah, because Ghosh were also milk traders or at least sellers or dealt with cows. Kalu Ghosh, being appointed by one of the gods to look after his cattle, killed and ate the sacred animals. Instead of being punished for his sacrilege, they are descended from one Kalu Ghosh who, being appointed by one of the gods to look after his cattle, he instead killed and ate the sacred animals, that Kalu Ghosh. Instead of being punished for his sacrilege, the story goes on to say that his descendants, who thenceforth applied themselves to cultivation, were permitted to rank above the children of the other brother Murari Ghosh, who faithfully discharged his trust. The other legend narrates the origin of the Sadgopas of Birbhum. The Sadgopas of Birbhum, say that their original name was Gop and their home was Gopbhum. Yeah, that is a Bengali Uchcharan. तो इसमें तो surprising नहीं है कुछ. From it, they migrated to Birbhum. Here, the Goyals, who at first formed one caste with them, associated with the aboriginal population and were therefore not ministered to by good Brahmins. They themselves were able to preserve the purity of the race, and to distinguish themselves from the Goalas, took the name Sadgopas, that is the good or pure Gopas. So today, if we want to maintain purity of our jatis, we will have to do what anyway happens. Okay, celebrities marry other celebrities, musicians marry musicians, scholars marry other scholars. Okay. Let me check some comments once again. Here to learn is saying, my friend is Gautam Ghosh, but when they were in Bihar, they called themselves Gautam Kumar Yadav. This is also a strange phenomenon. Now you understand why. This makes sense. Yadav, Gopa, Goyal, Ghosh, all are basically cow herders, cow protectors, Gopals, and milk sellers. It makes sense now why your friend would be Yadav in one state and Ghosh in one sense. Old Persian and Vedic Sanskrit are very similar. Exactly why Shah of Iran, Amit Shah, Ankit Shah, Nirajan Shah are all same Shah. Even the Bihari surname Shahu comes from same root. Yes, it does. Surajya Sanhita, this has become more interesting now. Surajya Sanhita says Gop were kind of police of Vedic tribes who protected. Exactly. Gopal. Okay. Go ka palan karna. Palan meaning Raksha. Okay. Goswami, Gopal. All of them are same. So they were Kshatriya. Okay. Interesting. But there are no 100% surety about these things, but the legend goes, some facts show that the Pal dynasty was started by a Brahmin Gopal who kind of officially, by some ceremony or the other, he changed his varna to Kshatriya because he was otherwise Brahmin. His just name was Gopal. Kushan kings were called Shahenshah only. Okay. Kushan kings were called Shahenshah, yes. So kings and so king, Kshatriya, and cow protection, these go hand in hand. Okay. If you are a king, by default one of your duties is to protect cows, or if you protect cows, therefore you have to use violence, therefore you are a Kshatriya. These are the murky waters, these are the ambiguities. So these things would make sense why Shah everywhere would be the same. Yeah, Pal is protector, yes. Pal is protector, Kshetrapal, Gopal, that is the same thing. And funnily enough, the Pal dynasty went annexed up till Punjab, which is why the Pal became a common middle name and surname even among Punjabi Sikhs. Pala in Vedic Sanskrit is protected, yes, Gopal. Goswami, Gopal, both mean the same thing. Or I guess Swami would mean owner, but owner and protector are same things anyway. ऐसा नहीं है कि separate से कोई bodyguard ढूंढना है go के लिए. To this day, the Sadgops are predominantly agriculturalists and yeah, so good or pure Gopas. कहाँ तक पढ़ा था, भूल गया, shit. They themselves were able to purity of race. Okay, so purity of race करना है तो अभी मुझे musician ही शादी करना होगा या फिर scholar, which I'm doing anyway. I'm dating a scholar. Chakravarti meant emperor but is now Brahmin. Pal has to be protector but craftsman of earthware. Yeah, so all the Durga idol sculptors are all from Pal surname, but they got to do that possibly because they were historically devout Hindus who were protecting cows. That is why they were, I guess, permitted or took upon it themselves to sculpt those idols, you see. By the way, a new dissertation was published recently that claims Indus Valley civilization is Rigvedic civilization. Search for Steve Monta. Okay, nice. We will need to discuss these papers to validate what we know already. The assumption of the common origin of the two castes is further reinforced by the information supplied by Mukundaram Chakravarti. You see, this unity between Amit Shah, Ankit Shah, Nirajan Shah, or my feeling a sort of a kinship, which I don't, but if I wanted, I could have felt a kinship with Shubhendu Adhikari, Krishnadev Raya, for all of us coming from Vaishnav families. These are just different ways of you to find unity with someone or the other. तो हम सब छोड़ के just हमारा region या हमारा लैंग्वेज के बेसिस पे रीजनल या लिंग्विस्टिक प्राइड नहीं रख सकते. तुमको लिंग्विस्टिक प्राइड सबसे सर्वोपरि लग रहा है क्योंकि लिंग्विस्टिक डिमार्केशन कुछ डेकेड पहले किया गया. उसके बेसिस पे तुम इतना फुदक रहे हो या फिर उसके बेसिस पे तुमको गाली दिया भी जा रहा है. बट इग्नोर इट, नॉट इग्नोर इट, आई मीन जो गाली दे उसको वापस गाली दो, बट डोंट थिंक दैट इज द एंड ऑल बी ऑल ऑफ द हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन स्टोरी. You can find, imagine if just instead of language, the states were divided on the Sampradaya lines. तो क्या तो वैष्णव नाम का एक स्टेट है, शाक्त का एक स्टेट है, शैवों का एक स्टेट है. तो आज हम वैष्णव प्राइड के बेसिस पे बवाल करते फिरे शाक्तों से. Have you read about Egyptian civilization? Do you think they hold some truth? No, I don't know anything about them. Another one question, what is your opinion on Caste's views of Shankaracharya, Puri Shankaracharya? Everything discussed in the beginning of the live stream. थोड़ा शुरू से देख लो. And there is Kumar Pal and Kayastha Pal, Goal Ghosh and Kayastha Ghosh, Sen Gupta and Das Gupta, Sen Sharma and Das Sharma. Yeah, these are later on. Okay, let's continue with the paper. So, they themselves were able to preserve the purity of race. The assumption of the common origin of the two castes is further reinforced by the information supplied by Mukundaram Chakravarti. His Chondi Mongol testified that the Gopas were already divided into two distinct sections by the second half of the 16th century. The first group, mentioned as Bonik Gop, is said to be agriculturalist by occupation, growing both cash crops and food crops and trading in these articles. While the second group still pursued their traditional occupation, for example, pastoral activities. The latter group has been distinguished from the former as Pollob Gop. The agriculturalist section of the Gops seem to have formed the genesis of the Sadgop caste. Okay, the agricultural section of the Gop seem to have formed the genesis of the Sadgop caste. To this day, the Sadgops are predominantly agriculturalists, and the Pallab Gops rely on a pastoral activities for their subsistence. So, the people with the Pallab surname, I see. Who is that famous singer with the Pallab surname? No, that's Pallab Kirtania. I'm confusing that. We do not know for certain when exactly the Sadgops totally separated themselves from the Gops, or when they came to acquire higher ritual status than the parent caste, but a broad time limit emerges out of the available data. The earliest mention of the caste can be found to occur in the questions submitted by the first judge of the provincial court in Calcutta to the Pandits of the court in connection with a lawsuit instituted in 1815 over the possession of the Karangarh Raj. On the other hand, it has already been pointed out that the caste was not shown to the 16th century poet of the Chondi Mongol, and is not found to occur in the list of the castes of Bengal incorporated in the Ananda Mongol of Bharat Chandra. Non-occurrence of the Sadgop caste in the list of Bharat Chandra is particularly insignificant because the poet had to pass through the region covered by the western part of Midnapur district and the southwestern part of Hooghly district, which is inhabited by the Sadgopas, in his journey to Puri and back. Besides, he lived for some time in the town of Burdwan, which is very close to Gopabhum, and Burdwan is basically Vardhaman, which is because Jainism was one of the earliest Vedic religions to reach this land of Vanga, and it's named after Vardhamana Mahavira. It may therefore be said that the emergence of the caste took place sometime between the 50s of the 18th century, the time of the Ananda Mongol, and the second decade of the 19th century, when the caste is known to have been named for the first time. Risley's account of the Sadgopas in his book The Tribes and Castes of Bengal testifies that the Sadgopas had earned the respectable status of a Navashakha before the publication of the book in 1891. There is, however, some indirect evidence which seems to suggest that the Sadgopas achieved the Navashakha rank about the beginning of the 19th century or a little earlier. As a Navashakha caste, the Sadgopas can appoint clean Brahmins for priestly services. The genealogical data of the hereditary clean Brahmin priests of the temples of the Sadgopas in the Sadgopa regions testify that clean Brahmin priests have been serving in these temples at least from the beginning of the 19th century or the closing years of the preceding century. It may be inferred that the Sadgopas have been enjoying Navashakha rank from about that time. It has been noted earlier that a group of the Gops, that is the Bonik Gops, had abandoned their traditional occupation and adopted agriculture and trade in crops by the middle of the 16th century. Now the people with the Bonik surnames are famous for owning jewelry shops. Change of occupation from pastoral activities to the more lucrative growing of cash crop and food crop incentives and trade in these articles must have helped them to accumulate marginal capital. That they invested the surplus money in land and in extending agriculture can be guessed from the fact that in the regions where they are consecrated, the Sadgopas are the large landowning people and traders in agricultural produce. These regions can be grouped into two consolidated zones which may be called the northern zone and the southern zone. The northern zone consists of Gopbhum, which roughly corresponds to the central position of the northern part of Burdwan district, Bardhaman district, and the southern part of Birbhum district and the Kandi Mahakuma subdivision, western part of the Murshidabad district. The southern zone is composed of the northwestern western and southwestern western parts of Midnapur district, southern part of Bakura district, southwestern part of Hooghly district, and the northwestern areas of Howrah district. So again, Dilip Ghosh is from this region. Okay, so Ghosh again, therefore traditionally Gopalak. Between the time of Mukundaram and the emergence of the caste, several locally powerful and influential Raj families came into being in the regions described above. Okay, this Raj family is the Malla dynasty of Bengal, right? जिसके लिए मल्लभूम नाम हुआ था. They were also, that dynasty was started by a person adopted by someone. So we don't know if this is the same as Malla Reddy in southern India. But they were the Mallas. I guess they are the Raj family. I don't remember exactly. More prominent among these were the Rajas of Amragarh, who were at the head of the Raj families of Gopbhum, and the Rajas of Karnagarh and Narayangarh, both in Midnapur district. Next in importance were the houses of Kangsha and Bharatpur, Gobhum and Bardhaman. The Raj family of Balarampur, the Khans of Narajol. This is not Khans, this is Khan. The Khans of Narajol, both in Midnapur district, and the Roys of Arambagh region, Hooghly district. The Rajas of Amragarh, who held sway over Gobhum, represented the most important political power of the Sadgopas in the northern zone. They ruled Gobhum with the help of subordinate chiefs stationed at different centers. From the available data, it is not possible to assess the extent of influence wielded by the Rajas of Gobhum, but they appear to have provided leadership in organizing the political power of the caste. All the scattered members of the caste refer back to Gobhum, and the descendants of the family constitute the highest stratum of the Sadgopa caste. In the southern zone, the major seats of political power of the Sadgopas were Karnagarh and Narayangarh. From the available records, it appears that the Karnagarh Raj was established in the first half of the 16th century and continued up to the 70s of the 18th century. The last surviving descendants live in Kolkata only, and most of them live outside. The semi-independent Rajas of Karnagarh were among the most powerful zamindars of the Jungle Mahal, that is the famous jungle tract now forming the western and southwestern parts of Bankura district, northwestern, western and southwestern parts of Midnapur district, the eastern and the southeastern parts of Purulia district, and the eastern part of Shingbhum district in Bihar. Even after the death of the last Raja, his widow was found to control most of the chieftains ruling over the different parts of the Jungle Mahal. And for the non-Bengalis who are viewing this live stream, let me tell you a little bit about Purulia. Purulia is a place which is very beautiful, mountainous, hilly, and has similar dance forms, art forms for different deities, exactly the way there is in Tulunadu. Okay, exactly how it is shown in Kantara. Okay, and Polluya means beautiful in Tulu, and Purulia is a similar, absolutely similar sounding word, is a beautiful place. So there are countless tissues of cultural connectivity which we have not done research in remotely. Instead, we have focused on what the fuck is the difference. How are we different from Kannadigas? ये चुतियापा बंद करके हमको ढूंढना है कि काहे वहाँ पे पुरुलिया वर्ड है, डांस फॉर्म जो जैसा दिखता है वही सेम डांस फॉर्म पुरुलिया में है, और पुरुलिया वर्ड भी यूज़ हो रहा है, और जो कि खूबसूरत देखने में भी है जगह. अनदर थिंग अबाउट पुरुलिया इज दैट the most famous highest hill in Purulia is Ayodhya, because all of them were Ram Bhakts there, so they named their mountain Ayodhya. Ajodhya Pahad is the most famous tourist spot in Purulia. Dada, Stephen Bonta's dissertation is 4,000 pages. He has published videos on YouTube, so search for Stephen. 4,000 पेज का डिसर्टेशन कैसे लिखता है कोई भाई? Fuck. हाँ तो ठीक है, एक दिन हम एक साथ देखेंगे वीडियो लाइव स्ट्रीम में. However, Santhals and Purulia tribes were CPIM vote banks because they were told that you are not oppressed by Brahmins and Hindus. Okay. Jungle Mahal. So, Narayangarh ho gaya. Yeah, Narayangarh was the southernmost. Yeah, Narayangarh was the southernmost political stronghold of the Sadgopas. The Rajas of Narayangarh, who controlled the strategic part of the trunk road to Odisha, that is the famous Badshahi Sarak. It was not made by a Badshah, it was there anyway. Was one of the local potentates loyal to the Mughal emperor and to the Nawab of Bengal in the second quarter of the 18th century. Later, they transferred their allegiance to the rising British power and helped the English against the Marathas. The concentration of the Sadgopas and the seats of their political power reveal a significant aspect of the activities of the caste. Almost the whole country of Gobhum was actually a wooded upland bounded by the Ajoy river on the north and the Damodar on the south. In the south, the Sadgops are found almost all over the undulating lateritic tract covered with jungle, which forms the western half of Midnapur district and the southwestern part of the district of Bankura. An extension of this concentration spreads over the southeastern part of Bankura and the adjacent areas of the southwestern part of Hooghly district. These are the regions. Okay, geography might be a little irrelevant to you guys, but we will get to more fun, juicy parts again, I hope, in the paper. These are the regions where the Sadgops constituted the landowning dominant caste and held political power. Okay, now again, Sadgopas are the landowning dominant caste and held political power. The choice of the forest-ridden lateritic tracts by the Sadgopas, the Jungle Mahal, for settlement and agricultural pursuits in the newly reclaimed lands is a highly significant factor to be reckoned with. Based on the thickly forested regions, The Gopis could extend agriculture over new areas and at the same time maintain their dominance without opposition from other caste groups possessing wealth and influence. क्योंकि वो लोग तो है ही नहीं वहाँ पे. At the present state of our knowledge, it is not possible to determine the exact nature and character of the relationship that existed between the new settlements of the Gopas and the greater Hindu society in Bengal. There are, however, certain indications that seem to suggest the seclusion of the new societies from the greater Hindu society. These are the following. The hereditary priests of Dandeshwara Shiva and Mahamaya at Karnogor, the deities of the local Rajas, come from the unclean Madhyasreni Brahmins. Another evidence can be found in a local custom of Gopbhum. The Brahmins of Gopbhum do not object to dining with the Sadgopas on the same floor. Only the sitting arrangements are to be made in different rows. Apparently, these two customs, one in Midnapur and the other in Burdwan, may seem to contradict each other. But in the ultimate analysis, both of them represent the objective situations resulting from the push and pull to which the new settlements of the Gopas were subjected at different stages. In Karnogor, the ritual standing of the priests of Dandeshwara and Mahamaya is not congruous with the position of the Raja of Karnogor, nor with the status of the Sadgop caste either. It is possible that the Raja could not find a priest from the pure Brahmins when he appointed the priest for his deities. In Gopbhum, the Brahmins had to compromise their ritual position with the dominance of the Sadgopas to the extent of agreeing to dine with a Shudra caste. Without CPIM, the principalities that the Sadgopas succeeded in carving out during the Mughal period were located in the regions described above. Under the provincial administrative system of the Mughals, the grip of the imperial authority was considerably loose in an outlying province like Bengal. In the remote forest tracts, the authority of the administration, even through the provincial governor and his agents, was still more feeble. Besides, Midnapur being in the frontier between Bengal and Odisha, the political condition of the western part of the Midnapur district, through which the Badshahi Sarak passed connecting Bengal with Odisha, had never been stable. As a general practice, the viceroy and his agents had to depend on the regional princes and the zamindars for the maintenance of law and order and collection of taxes, the machinery at their disposal being inadequate. Okay, we know that a large portion of Bengal must have been covered by autonomous zamindars and petty kingdoms. These regional leaders had their power bases in the local chieftains, village leaders and tribal leaders who directly controlled the peasants, artisans and traders at the local level. The general political fluidity of the system, यही मैं बोल रहा हूँ. This is the general political fluidity of Bengal, which has led to Bengal not having too much of casteism, and which is why once sort of Hinduism and pro-India actions and voices are incentivized, everyone will become a hardcore BJP supporter, Bhakt, all of a sudden. The general political and will die and kill for BJP. The general political fluidity of the system offered abundant opportunity to ambitious persons to acquire political power. Under these circumstances, the leaders of the Gopas rose to political power in the woodlands of Gopbhum and in the politically vulnerable forest tracts of Midnapur district, where they were large landowners and hence the dominant group. The leaders of the caste acquired power both at the regional and local levels. Regional powers were represented by the Rajas of Amragarh, Karnogor and the Narayangor, while the subordinate Rajas of Gopbhum were local chieftains. In Midnapur, the regional Rajas depended on the subordinate zamindars and landowners who were mostly Sadgopas. At the base were tribal village leaders whose relationship with the zamindars have been indicated above. This is all that we know about the history of the group of people now known as the Sadgopas, a Navashakha caste, prior to the emergence of the caste. They dominated the economic and political life of certain regions in southwestern Bengal over a period of time, their efforts being facilitated by the economic conditions of these marginally settled regions and the overall political condition of the country. Their dominance over the public life of these regions, it may be safely said, must have helped them in building up a superior status in the eyes of the people. All these things happened, it appears, before the emergence of the caste. A direct correlation between the activities of this group of people and their consolidation as a distinct caste group, along with their achievement of the respectable Navashakha status, appears to be a very strong possibility. Although there is no direct evidence to establish this correlation in unqualified terms, circumstantial evidence arranged in historical order appears to be as strong as direct evidence. Such a rise in the status of a caste needs the help of those who would perform rituals for the aspirant status seekers. Some indirect evidence of such help can be inferred from the data given above, and these will be presented below. However, it should be pointed out that evidences of this mutual adjustment between the guardians of rituals and the mobile castes are bound to have been concealed by the beneficiaries. More anthropological research, therefore, is indicated for the reconstruction of such evidence. As their wealth increased, the Sadgopas started building temples. In Gopbhum and in the Sadgopa belts of Birbhum, Bakura, Midnapur, Hugli and Howrah, Sadgopa zamindars and joddars, that is tenant farmers, built quite a large number of temples in the 17th, 18th and 19th centuries. Temple building being an important form of social service and a medium through which influence could be spread in the traditional Indian society. These temples must have helped the Sadgopas to raise their status in the Hindu society. Though temple is not an abstract religious philosophical concept, temple has a very significant socio-political symbolism and significance. तो वही आज भी हो रहा है. तो आज भी इसका politicization इसीलिए justified है. As Gopas, they were entitled to receive the priestly services of the unclean Varna Brahmins. But as the landowning dominant group, they could attract the clean Brahmins to officiate as priests in their temples and family functions in exchange for lucrative Brahmottar land grants, which are rent-free land grants from the maintenance of the Brahmins, for the maintenance of the Brahmins, and other ancillary benefits that a priest can get from wealthy patrons. All the temples of the Sadgopas, except the Dandeshwara and Mahamaya temples of Karnagar, are served by clean Brahmins. The legend preserved by the Sadgopas of Birbhum also refers to their receiving the services of the clean Brahmins on account of their cleaner habits than the Gopas. In Gopbhum, the Brahmins were more flexible. They dined with the Sadgopas on the same floor, though in different rows. And the subtlety. As a necessary concomitant of the process of validization, myths pertaining to the origin of the castes were manufactured. In all probability, the helpful Brahmins did this also. One such myth, which seeks to establish the cleanliness of the caste, has been narrated above. Tili, like the Sadgopas. The Tilis are not found in either of the two Puranas mentioned above or in the Chondimangala of Mukundaram Chakraborty. The term Tili occurs as the name of a caste in the list of castes in Bharatchandra's Anandamangala. But in all, these are famous texts in Bengali literature, okay? Historical. I mean, famous historically, not historical texts. Tili Nadu bananor jonno ki Tili naam chilo naki? But in all probability, Tili has been used here as a substitute for Teli, acha, which does not figure in the list. In other words, the Tilis of Bharatchandra are to be taken as identical with the Telis and not as a caste distinct from the other. Okay. By the second half of the 19th century, the term Tili became the symbol of higher status among the Telis. An indication of the prevalence of such an attitude among the Telis can be found in the census report of 1872. Now that they, Telis, are largely engaged in trade and cultivation, it is the fashion for them to conceal their caste, which is an impure caste, by styling themselves Tili Shaha and the like. The actual character of the Tili movement at the end of the 19th century has been made clear by Risley in the following. In the districts of central Bengal, Telis who have grown rich call themselves Tilis and affect to be a higher lineage than the Telis, although they retain the old family titles. Wealth and property have made them give up the manufacture of oil and led them to become Amdawala, or traders buying goods wholesale and selling them by retail. So again, profession change ho gaya. Some go to the length of saying that the Tili is a caste wholly distinct from Teli, but I doubt whether the process of separation has gone so far. Separatist movement in the Teli caste, however, was not confined in central Bengal only. In eastern Bengal, temples historically worldwide served as town centers and economic and political. Yes. Sadgopas and history of Tamil Brahmins are similar. Acha. Muthas in south claim that they were invited by OBC kings to help priestly work of temples and built agraharams for them to live. Tamil Brahmins never had political power, contradictory to Dravidoid dreams. Yes, no wonder they are not landed even now. Okay. So separatist movement, yeah, was not confined to center. Okay, now in eastern Bengal, so Bangladesh regions, there are two great subdivisions of this caste: the Toil Pal or Manuhar Pal and the Teli. The former being the richer and more numerous. So Toil Pal is more richer and more numerous. A third group among the Telis had already attained a higher ritual status than the parent caste. Referring to them, Risley observed in Bengal, the higher subcastes of Telis who have abandoned the oil trade and became bankers, moneylenders, and shopkeepers take rank among the Navashakhas. Apparently, the separatist movements led by the higher section of the Telis had assumed a fairly extensive form by the end of the 19th century. The origin of these movements can be traced in the history of the activities of the Telis from the first half of the 18th century. The fixation of the time limit is not due to any significant historical reasons. It has just emerged out of the data that could be gathered hitherto. Regarding the activities of the caste prior to this period, we know practically nothing except the general information supplied by Mukundaram that occupationally the Telis were divided into three groups. For example, the agriculturalists, the oil producers, and the traders in oil. A clear indication of the importance of the Telis in the economic and social life of Bengal in the 18th and 19th centuries can be obtained from a study of the temples built by prosperous members of the caste during this period. Wealthy Telis enthusiastically participated in temple building in the 18th and 19th centuries. A historical survey of temple building in Bengal shows that the Telis' contribution toward the total number of temples built by the castes ranking below the Navashakhas in the 18th century was the highest. क्या भाई कौन लोअर कास्ट को तुम मंदिर जाने से रोकोगे किस बेसिस पे भाई? Historical survey of temple building in Bengal shows that the Telis' contribution toward the total number of temples built by the castes ranking below the Navashakhas in the 18th century was the highest. Modi is Teli, right? I'm not sure. I've heard. I don't remember exactly. Navashakhas in the 18th century was the highest. Temples being a mark of fortune and a medium through which influence could be spread over the society, the continuous patronage of the Telis in temple building testify to the high economic and social position of the Telis in the contemporary society. So now when I say internal consumption, हम यही produce करेंगे, यही पे मंदिर पे चढ़ावा हो जाएगा और इस वो product का वो फसल का sort of consumption यहीं पे हो गया, that does not mean a commune like living, that does not mean communism. क्या डिफरेंस है? द ऑब्सेशन विद भोसरी की इक्वालिटी इज अ बुलशिट कॉन्सेप्ट. इक्वालिटी नहीं होगा, इक्वालिटी इज नॉट इवन डिजायरेबल. ओके, if Modi is serving as prime minister, he deserves more personal bodyguard, he deserves more salary than me. इसमें कोई बात नहीं है. And the other thing that is different from communism therefore is atheism, the obsession with atheism, with atheism. Okay, there's definitely nothing to believe in, only what you can see in front of your eyes that is true. That is the bullshit that leads communism down the path of shitholery. Social position of the Telis in the contemporary society. A considerable section of these temples was built by the mercantile section of the Telis. Trade, no doubt, formed a part of the traditional occupation of the Telis, as evident in the relevant lines in the Chondimongol of Mukundaram mentioned above, but the scope offered by oil trade was too limited in those days to attract ambitious members of the caste. From the papers of the families concerned with temple building and from other sources of information, it is seen that from the 18th century, the Telis were increasingly breaking into broader fields of industrial and commercial activities. At the same time, they were investing in land as well. Kya caste rigidity? In the 19th century, the Telis were one of the foremost mercantile communities in Bengal. They enthusiastically availed themselves of the opportunity that came up as a result of the immense growth of export trade and the opening of a vast internal market ready to supply raw materials and absorb finished products of British and other manufacturers. Throughout East and North Bengal, which was the richest part of the province, the internal trade was in the hands of the various trading castes like the Shahas and Telis. Only in places like Dhaka, which were old metropolitan centers, was trade not confined to any particular community or caste, where my ancestors are from. Europeans, Armenians, Mohammedans, and Hindus were all engaged in it. Among the Hindus, Boshaks, Shahas, and Telis figured most prominently. I see. Where my family settled after they came to Kolkata during partition, one of our neighbors are Boshaks. All of those came together and settled in the same colony at the same time. No wonder. Although there were Bhattacharyas as well. One of the leading they must have been neighbors in Bangladesh as well, engaged in it. Europeans, Armenians, So one of the leading telemercantile families of the 19th century was this is what I was looking for, guys. Now check this out. One of the biggest and most famous, one of the best hospitals in West Bengal or in Kolkata is Peerless Hospital, okay? And it is a huge attraction for even Bangladeshi patients. So Peerless Hospital was built by someone with a royal surname who were historically bankers. And they were their surname was Roy, and they were also in Bangladesh. One of the leading telemercantile families of the 19th century was the Roys, Kundu, of Bhaggokul, Dhaka district, East Pakistan. So, caste hai Roy, but surname hai Kundu. But of course, not everyone followed that, obviously. Some kept their surname as Roy itself, who were very prominent in the field of domestic trade. And we discussed banking just a little while back. They established quite a number of mercantile and banking firms in various trade centers of Bengal, including Calcutta. Yes, इन्हीं का descendant है जो Peerless Hospital का founder है. They also established a steamer service, meaning छोटा जहाज, steamer service between Dhaka and Calcutta. It has been noted above that at the end of the 19th century, Risley found that the higher subcaste of the Telis were bankers, moneylenders, and shopkeepers, while in central Bengal, the Telis had become amdawalas or traders buying goods wholesale and selling them by retail. So my families were what? Bankers, moneylenders, shopkeepers. Yeah, I think shopkeepers, but because my father's father used to sell gamchas. Along with their commercial enterprises, the Telis were investing money to acquire the status of a zamindar. The greatest. तो अब तेली क्या शाह का भी मतलब कैटेगरी में आ गया? शाह क्या तेली है? तो अब me and Narendra Modi are in the same caste or what? But he is OBC. यहाँ का Shahs are scheduled caste, but I am none of those. क्या weird है भाई. Along with their commercial enterprises, the Telis were investing money to acquire the status of a zamindar. The greatest ambition of a salt, jute or rice merchant, generally a Teli or a Shah by caste, after rising to influence is to buy up a zamindari or estate. In fact, most of the Teli zamindar families had mercantile background or carried on commercial pursuits along with the management of their estates. Achha, yeah. So business and capitalism mere khoon mein hai, and I was born in the year that 1991 reforms happened. Nice. Of them, the following are the most important. The Nandis of Kashim Bazar. Okay. Now Rajarshi Nandi ka ye ancestor hai kya? Nandis of Kashim Bazar, Roys of Bhaggokul, probably therefore the founders of Peerless Hospital, Pal Chaudhuris of Ranaghat, De Chaudhuris of the same place, De's of Srirampur, Chaudhuris of Gaunpur, ye kahan hai? And the Kundu Chaudhuris of Mohiari. Perhaps the only notable exception was the Raj family of Digha Patia, Rajshahi district, East Pakistan. Okay, now this Digha is because of the popularity of Pali language, okay? Because in Pali language, they don't pronounce the R, no? So dharma hai dhamma. So therefore, Dirgha, meaning long, is Digha Nikaya, which is why the most famous beach in Bengal, which is, all these places were famously Buddhist places, and that name of that beach is Digha, because it's a pretty long beach. Digha Patia. Dayaram Rai, 1680 to 1760, the founder of the family, was the Diwan of the Nator Raj. Natorer Bonolata Sen. Dayaram was instrumental in helping Ramjiban of Nator to bring about the downfall of Raja Sitaram Roy, the famous rebel against the Mughal administration in 1714. Ye dekho, Hindu disunity. Dayaram was helping Ramjiban of Nator to bring about the downfall of Raja Sitaram Roy, who was rebelling against Mughal administration. Wow, wow, wow. For his services, he was rewarded with the title of Rai Rayon. Okay. ये तो title देना तो सबका favorite काम है. Rai Bahadur, Rai Sreshto, Bhuri Sreshto. For his services, he was rewarded with the title of Rai Rayon by Murshid Quli Khan, the Subedar provincial governor of Bengal, and received land grants from Ramjiban. Okay, and Murshid Quli Khan is the founder of the place called Murshidabad, which is a very, very patharbazi place. As the Diwan of the Nator Raj, and actually that is where, Baharampur, Murshidabad, yeah, Arijit Singh lives nearby there. As the Diwan of the Nator Raj, he served under Ramjiban, his son Ramkanto, and after Ramkanto's death under Rani Bhavani, and obtained large grants of land from them. None of his descendants are found to indulge in trade and commerce. उनको तो अब स्टैचर मिल गया, अब बिजनेस करके क्या होगा, बिजनेस में हार्ड वर्क देके क्या होगा. Quite a number of Teli zamindars were not exclusively zamindars. The Roys of Bhaggokul were mainly traders, bankers and moneylenders, while the peerless one. While the Nandis of Kashim Bajar owned mines and quarries. The Kundu Chaudhuris of Mohiari combined moneylending with zamindari. The Pal Chaudhuris of Ranaghat used to run indigo factories side by side with zamindari. Wow, wow, wow. Collaborator class. These are the few notable examples representing the pattern of economic activities of the wealthy Telis. Besides being zamindars, the Telis were purchasing cultivable lands and becoming large jotdars. Like the zamindar Telis, the jotdar Telis also combined trade, banking and moneylending with their ownership of cultivable lands. As the Telis came up in prominence by dint of their economic prosperity and the influence they exerted on the society as zamindars, jotdars and traders, the low position of the caste created acute incongruity in their life. In order to establish a parity of standards between these two aspects of life set in juxtaposition in the traditional culture of India, it was necessary for the Telis to make efforts to climb up the hierarchy of caste. The most significant attempt to this direction in the 18th century was made by Krishnakanta Nondi, popularly known as Kanto Babu, a remarkable personality in the 18th century Bengal and the founder of the Kashim Bajar Raj family. Son of a petty trader, Kanto Babu entered the services of the Kashim Bajar factory of English East India Company as a broker. Through his ability, lack of scruples and close association with the English, Kanto Babu became a man of great wealth and influence. He held large revenue farms along with the profitable salt farm at Hijli and speculated in salt. Okay, salt ka stocks mein trade karte the. Kanto Babu reached the apex of his career as the Banyan or Indian steward and agent of Warren Hastings. Oh my God! तो ये collaborator in chief, Governor General of Bengal from 1773 to 1785. Kanto Babu was one of the principal lieutenants of Hastings and thus became a very powerful and influential person. For his son Loknath, Kanto Babu secured the title of Maharaja and left a vast fortune, including landed properties yielding 5 lakhs of rupees annually. These were the rich ghotis, okay, the Bengali Hindus who were living here even before partition, and these were the ones who were the biggest oppressors of Bangladeshi Hindu refugees when they came after partition. These were the people who denied our ancestors rice, etc. But of course, I'm going to move on from that history and look for points of unity. But it's fun to remember anyway. Not be pissed off about it. Kanto Babu secured under Hastings. Kanto Babu also held the charge of the Jatimala Kachari in Calcutta, which was a regular court for hearing and deciding. Jatimala or Jyotimala? It's Jatimala, yeah. Regular court for hearing and deciding cases relating to caste matters. Okay, let me check some comments now. Yeah, lots of good comments. Let me check all these comments. Tamil Brahmins used to have land. They were stolen and then driven out of their land. Just they didn't actually till it. They administered it in a detached way. Achha. That happened under Arcot and Brits. Some Brahmins were recruited to become judges. Okay. Modi is Teli, I see. In Rajshahi, Bangladesh, the royal Kali priest goes crazy, wants to in Rajorshi. Oh, acha, in Rajorshi play. Yeah. It was in my ISC syllabus, and I really love that story. I finished it just 2 days before my ISC board exam, and I was in a band competition even 3 days before the exam. I remember still finishing the book. I didn't even read it once the entire 2 years. I just read some portions which I needed to pass the qualifying exams, etc. But the entirety of Rajshahi I read finished only 3 days before the ISC exams, and I was reading it when my band was when the band competition sound checks were going on. So the rest of the band was hanging out, having cigarettes, and I was reading Rajorshi, sitting on my my guitar amplifier in NUJS college. So yeah, in Rajorshi, the royal Kali priest goes crazy, wants to do Boli of king, but his son kills himself and goes even more crazy, and throwing away of Kali Murti is shown as the resolution of the story. It's Tagore, yeah. We've heard of martial races, but martial race theory was a subset of a larger social theory that they believed in. Yeah. Caste rigidity is like the biggest farce inflicted on us. Might be the stupidest move by Hindus. In Maharashtra, Brits employed Chitpavan Brahmins as judges. Yeah, the Savarkar's caste, right? In Tamil Nadu, they did the same with Iyyars. In North Tamil Nadu, they employed Reddis as administrators because they were record keepers of the Nawabs of our court. Truly a self-goal, falling for and believing the propaganda and then practicing it like idiots. Exactly. झूठ विश्वास कर लिया और बोलने लगा कि हाँ यही सच है. चलो अब ये फॉलो भी करते हैं. It's about King Govindamanik of Tripura, who banned animal sacrifice, but in the story, priest goes crazy. If priest is crazy, throw priest into the river. Why throw Kali Pratima? British turned the entire social hierarchy on its head when and where it was beneficial to them. Royal Viceroy. You see, you have to understand what was the context of that Upanyas being written, right? Rabindranath Tagore was asked to write that. He was asked by the royal family of that era to write a fictionalized account of my family, okay, Tripura, not my family, meaning Tripura's royal family. And that was during the British era. So who knows what dealings the British had with them, because that story was approved by the Tripura royal family. Then it was presented as a magazine article, like in episodes, okay. Only in some portions appeared in some magazine, in some editions of the magazines. So who knows what all internal politics happened. And Rabindranath Tagore did not write it out of his own wishes. कि चलो अच्छा है कि एक राजर्षि book लिखते हैं. He was asked to write that. British turned the entire social hierarchy. Dada, you should read Constituent Assembly debates regarding forward and backward classes to understand why you are UC and Modi is OBC. UC is what? UC का full form क्या है? Unreserved category. They intrinsically understood the problems with British interpretation of caste. Yeah. My mother's side is Pal Chaudhary. My maternal grandfather was from Chattogram and came to Murshidabad. My Didima says Telis are the lowest caste, lower than Chamar. I don't know why would people have stigma with oil. It's understandable with leather. Bhaiya, I want to know about my caste. Pasi. Never heard of it. Do you remember any sources? No, I haven't even heard of this word. Pasi caste. Okay. Okay. Oh, acha. Yeah, mine is upper caste, but they are scheduled caste. So Modi is OBC Teli, and Shahas of West Bengal, who have been here from before partition and have not suffered partition, they are scheduled caste, but I am upper caste. I see. Yeah, Constituent Assembly debates I'll have to read someday. A lot of it will be, I think, in J. Deepak's next 2 books. Okay. Now, kahan the hum? Jatimala. Yeah. The eloquent incongruity between the wealth and power of Kanto Babu and the low position of the telecast was highlighted when the Pandas of Puri refused to allow him to provide an atak or assignment of land for the maintenance of the poor in Puri because of the low position of his caste. देखो भाई, इसको हम चूतियापा नहीं बोले तो क्या बोले? भला आदमी पैसा दे रहा है गरीबों का भला करने के लिए, उसको बोल रहा है कि नहीं भाई तुम लोअर कास्ट हो इसलिए तुम पैसा नहीं दोगे इसका. Upon this, Kanto Babu applied to the Pandits. This is what we mean when we say that casteism is bad. If you want to be casteist in your personal life, you want to marry in your own caste, okay, that's fine. These are the situations where you are applying casteism positively to other people as well. You are affecting other people negatively, okay. This is not acceptable. Upon this, Kanto Babu applied to the Pandits of Navadvip and Tribeni, requesting them to clarify the ritual position of his caste. In their reply, the Pandits observed that since the Telis used a balance in their trade, they must necessarily belong to the Navashakha rank like other trading castes. So they kind of validated Kanto Babu's position. Kanto Babu died in 1793 or in the following year. During the 19th century, the attempts by the richer section of the Telis to break away from the parent caste became extensive and gathered momentum. Beverley noted in 1872 that it was fashion for the trading and cultivating Telis to attempt to conceal their caste by styling themselves Tili, Shaha and the like. In their accounts of the Telis, Wise and Risley have shown that by the end of the 19th century, the separatist movements among the Telis have taken 3 different forms. The Naboshakha Telis, a group of the richer section of the Telis, which had entirely separated itself from the parent caste by moving upward to the Navashakha rank, and the Tilis, the prosperous section of the Telis in the central Bengal, sought to form themselves in a group called the Tili, which they claimed to be an exclusively separate caste, and the Monohar Pal or Toilopal, a subcaste formed by the wealthy Telis of East Bengal. What are the possibilities of state reorganization and what will be its implications? I don't know what benefits or disadvantages are there, except there will be a lot of hullabaloo and negative press. All the solutions that people are saying it will have, all of them are temporary. They are just very soft bandages. Although I think it will happen. I think BJP is hinting that they are going to do it. Of the separatist movements that threatened the... So I'm not really opposed to it because I don't even see what big problem is going to occur because of this. Of the separatist movements that threatened the integrity of the Teli caste, the Tili movement seems to have been the strongest. The importance of the Tili movement has been adequately reflected in the attitude of the census authorities to this group. Although the Tilis were not recognized by the census authorities as a distinct caste before 1931, in the 19th century, the Tilis were given separate entry, while in the first quarter of the 20th century, the Tilis were invariably mentioned with the Telis, my god, Telis and Tilis, as the two component sections of one particular caste. Analyzing table 1 below, अच्छा table 1 में देखते हैं क्या है. अच्छा ये हम पढ़ नहीं सकते, चलो ऐसे ही on face value ही मान लेते हैं कि क्या है उसमें. Analyzing table 1 below, we find that in 1872, when the first census operations were conducted in Bengal, the Tili movement had assumed substantial proportions of aspirants forming 24.44% of the total Teli population enumerated. Okay. 1872 में Tili movement assumed substantial proportions, the aspirants forming 24.44% of the total Teli population enumerated. From the distinct data, it is found that the movement had spread over the major part of Bengal, but in the greater part of the Radi region, that is the southwestern part of Bengal, the properly Hindutva position of area of West Bengal, comprising the districts of Midnapur, Howrah, Hooghly, Bankura, Bardhaman and Birbhum, where 57.45% of the Teli population of Bengal was concentrated, there was no Tili. Only in the district of Hooghly, Howrah, 8,465 persons, which is 28% of the Telis of the Rar region, claimed to be Tili. There was also no Tili claim in the district of Murshidabad, a part of which, namely the Kandi subdivision, belongs to the Rar region, while in the adjacent district of Rajshahi, only 1.29% of the Telis preferred to be known as Tili. Far to the southeast, in the district of Noakhali and in the easternmost district of Sylhet, the attitude of the Telis were identical with their counterparts in Murshidabad. A diametrically opposite attitude was expressed in the itna diversity hai from village to village, locality to locality, just in terms of caste, again in terms of sati pratha. तो कैसे कोई भी चीज़ हम बोल सकते हैं कि this is what used to happen in Hindu society in ancient India or in medieval India. Whatever, good or bad, none of any good or any bad thing happened all across the landmass of Hindu civilization at any single point of time. The attitude of the Telis. A diametrically opposite, yeah. So all the Telis counted in these districts identified themselves as Tili. In the districts of Dhaka, Dinajpur and Rangpur, all these in Bangladesh, okay, and Bakharganj, all in Bangladesh, the overwhelming majority of the persons claiming to be Tili reduced the number of the Telis to insignificance. Abhi to chalo in logo ka sabka surname hai Ahmed Khan, etc. A study of the regional distribution of the Tilis, as reflected in the census enumerations of 1872, reveals that the insistence of the Telis on being regarded as Tilis was at the extreme ends in the districts, mostly lying in the borders of the province. In the southwestern border districts of Midnapur, Bankura, Bardhaman and Birbhum, and in the districts of Chattogram and Sylhet, situated along the southeastern and eastern border respectively, the Tili movement was entirely non-existent. Arey bapre. On the other hand, the districts of Jalpaiguri, Bakharganj lying on the Jalpaiguri in India, Bakharganj in Bangladesh, lying on the northern and southern extremities of Bengal respectively, were found among the strongholds of the Tili movement. What are possibilities of states? Okay, will linguistic regionalism and subnationalism reduce by doing states reorganization? I don't know. You are too worried about linguistic regionalism. Take Karnataka as an example. There's 3 KN kya hai? All regions hate each other and prefer to work with the neighboring states rather than Bengaluru. Yeah, so the linguistic pride movement in Karnataka might be a minuscule minority, but in Bengal that is not the case. In Bengal, this Bangla Pakho movement is gathering steam between from all Trinamool supporters and CPM supporters, which is a significant population, and also Muslims. That is my problem with linguistic pride. Hyderabad Kannadigas think they are above Mysuru Karnatakas and Bombay Karnataka, think the other two are stupid. Like JU used to have a presidency used to have a proverb amongst themselves that that people from Jadavpur University are only fit for drinking the urine of presidency university folk. Were found among the strong. हाँ, तो इतना फिशर्स ढूंढने का बाकी है between our enemies. उनका फिशर्स छोड़ के खुद का फिशर्स मत ढूंढो. Okay, based on the figures of 1891 census, shows that the Tili movement was suffering a setback when the census operations were undertaken. Although the movement was found to spread over new areas in a number of districts which appeared to be strongholds of the Tili movement in 1872, the movement either decayed or died out. All over the Rar region and Murshidabad and Rajshahi districts, the Tili movement was found to have become an effective force in the life of the Telis. Particularly in the district of Midnapur, the movement had made substantial progress. But over a much larger area, the movement is found to have been in decay. In the districts of Bogra, Jalpaiguri and Chattogram, where the Telis unanimously claimed to be Tili in 1872, in 1891, either there was not a single Tili claim, as in the Bogra and Chattogram, or a very insignificant number of persons preferred the new identity. देखो भाई, 20 साल में caste गायब ही हो गया. Something very similar happened in the district of Dhaka. So not only is there caste mobility, there is birth and death of new castes. In the following districts, the number of the Tilis declined phenomenally. 24 Parganas, Dinajpur, Rangpur and Tripura. From the data supplied by Beverly, Wise and Risley, it appears that the aspirant Telis were divided into several groups. Probably this explains the phenomenal fluctuations in the number of Telis in several districts of Bengal between 1872 and 1891. Before 1891, a group of prosperous Telis had already separated themselves from the parent body, while apart from the Tili movement, there were the Shaha Teli and Manohar Pal Teli movements organized by the wealthy Telis in order to get themselves into a better position than the ordinary Telis. All of these movements emerged from similar circumstances and aimed at the same goal. This must have given rise to considerable confusion among the aspirant Telis. They could not make up their mind whether they would form a superior subcaste of the Telis or would entirely conceal their caste by organizing themselves to form a new caste called the Tili. क्या भाई क्या मतलब ये cluster fuck बोलते हैं जिसको. It is due to this confusion and vacillation from which the wealthy Telis were suffering that the number of the Telis fluctuating so sharply in a number of districts between 1872 and 1891 and the influence of the Tili movement showed no sign of stability except in a few districts of central Bengal. Oh my god. By which year can we expect Waqf Act, Places of Worship Act to be done away with? I think 2029. Districts of central Bengal showed no sign of stability except in few districts. So, at this critical juncture, the leadership of the Tili movement was taken up by Maharaja Manindra Chandra Nondi of Kashembazar, a descendant of Kanto Babu, who provided the primary and embryonic leadership to the aspirant Telis at the end of the 18th century. The Raj family of Kashembazar enjoyed an unique reputation all over Bengal, partly due to the renown of its remarkable founder and partly due to the unbound charities of Maharani Swarnamoyi, the predecessor of Manindra Chandra. अच्छा इनके नाम पे ही वो Manindra Chandra कॉलेज है कोलकाता में, जहाँ से नचिकेता चक्रवर्ती was a pass out who wrote the song that Bengal hasn't become Gujarat, and that's a great thing. Besides, because of their wealth and influence, the zamindars of Kashembazar in the district of Murshidabad were held in great esteem by the Telis of Bardhaman and Murshidabad. The two Murshidabad, again, the place founded by Murshid Quli Khan, okay? The two districts with which the family was closely connected. Kanto Babu's native village was located in Eastern Bardhaman, while up to the 20th century, matrimonial relations of the family were established with the Teli families belonging to the Bahannogrami Samaj, okay? 52 villages, okay? Bahannogram means 52 villages. Bahannogrami Samaj, which is an endogamous regional subcaste of Eastern Bardhaman consisting of persons hailing from 52 villages in that region. Interesting. So, a caste ban gaya based on a unity created by these 52 villages. Okay, my god. तो सबका unity होगा तो overall Hindu society का क्यों नहीं? Manindra Chandra inherited the property of the Kashembazar house in 1897 at the death of Maharani Swarnamoyi. The Tili movement had spread had spread over the districts of Murshidabad and Bardhaman in the last decade of the 19th century. Manindra Chandra thus came to the forefront of the Tili movement and soon became the most prominent leader of the Tilis. He tried to consolidate the Tili movement by bringing the aspirant Telis within its fold. Dekho. It was mainly due to his initiative that the Bongyo Tili Jati Sammilani, Bengal Tili Caste Conference, was formed in 1901 in order to propagate the rationale, the justification of the Tili movement, and to integrate the potential members into a distinct caste group, namely the Tili. In order to और सिर्फ पाँच पेज बाकी है. In order to accelerate the integrating movement, efforts were made to induce the endogamous subcastes of different regions to establish affinal connections with each other. Manindra Chandra took the initiative to make this effort successful. Contrary to the tradition of the family, which permitted matrimonial relationship within the Bahannogrami subcaste का नाम है Bahannogrami. Within the Bahannogrami subcaste of Eastern Bardhaman only, he established matrimonial relationships with the Roys of Bhaggokul of Dhaka, Raj family of Dighapatia in Rajshahi, Bangladesh, Shaha family of Hili, Dinajpur, a bit of it is in Bangladesh, a bit of it is in West Bengal, Pal Chaudhuri family of Ranaghat, Nodia, and Roy family of Domsha, Faridpur, Dhaka. Faridpur is in Bangladesh. So, belonging to the different subcastes. His instance was followed by others. Okay. Let's see. I think abolishment of Waqf and Places of Worship Act will be a Jhatka legislation. BJP will introduce it like Article 370. Nobody will know what the heck happened and Waqf will be dissolved. I don't think it will be dissolved because it actually need not be dissolved as far as I've heard people talk about it, because I have not read the act myself. I've heard Anand Ranganathan say that it wasn't that problematic before the 1991 amendments to the Waqf Act. The Waqf Act problems we know came because of the 1991 Waqf Act. So if it goes back to the pre-1991 Waqf Act to keep Muslims happy, so I think that balance might be reached by BJP based on what actually is there in the act, which Anand Ranganathan might have read. I have not read. Okay. Thus, his instance was followed by others. Thus, the Tili movement was saved from the crisis that threatened to disintegrate it at the end of the 19th century. Gradually, the movement began to gather momentum and succeeded in attracting the majority of the aspirant Telis. But my point is, यहाँ पे यूनिटी का फैक्टर यही से आता है कि ये जो टर्म है तेली, तेल निकालने वाले का कास्ट होगा तेली, ये कॉन्सेप्ट दूर गुजरात तक है. शाह, तेली, ये सब नाम अगर गुजरात तक का है तो भाई कोई तो यहाँ पे बहिरागत आउटसाइडर नहीं है. वो सब हम हिंदू और इंडियन है. हिंदुइज्म इज सनातन धर्म. तो ये आउटसाइडर का चुतियापा इसलिए बंद करना है. गुजरात, राजस्थान में तेली मर रहा है, नरेंद्र मोदी प्राइम मिनिस्टर है तेली, और यहाँ पे पूरा बांग्लादेश का तेली 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 हम सुन रहे हैं लास्ट 1 घंटे से. तो नाम का ही अगर कैरी ओवर हो रहा है पूरे के पूरे देश में, तो हम कैसे बोल सकते हैं कि कोई आउटसाइडर है कहीं पे भी. Tili movement was saved from crisis that threatened to disintegrate it. Gradually, the movement began to gather momentum and succeeded in attracting the majority of the aspirant Telis almost all over Bengal. By the first quarter of the 20th century, the Telis can be founded to have established a separate identity of their caste as distinct from the Telis. Referring to the Telis and Tilis, the census report of 1921 says, the Telis are dealers in oil, but an influential and very wealthy section calling itself the Tilis is now definitely separate from the rest, though very many Telis aspire to belong to it. At the same time, so Teli becomes the so-called reputable, Telis remain lower caste. At the same time, the Telis were upset and felt bitter. This was the attitude of the anonymous author of the booklet called Boishototto ba Teli Jatir Itibritto. Okay? It means that Tattva of the Vaishyas and also Teli Jati ka pura description Varnan, Itibritta. Itibritta, I guess, is a Sanskrit word as well. A section of the Telis have coined the term Tili to be used as the name of their caste with the intention of separating themselves from the Telis who are unfortunately known to be impure or held with contempt. So much Teli in Bengal that Mamta likes to fry chop shilpo and Narendra Modi is a Teli. Finally, in 1931, the Telis received recognition from the census authorities as a separate caste. The census report also noted the ritual position of the caste in the caste hierarchy of Bengal. The Telis are said to be the Jolocharanyo, I don't know what's the pronunciation, Jalacharanya, that is from whom a Brahmin can accept water. Jolcharanyo hi hobe bodhoy, Jolcharanyo. from whom a Brahmin can accept water, whilst the Telis and Kalus are Jalavya Vaharya, that is, from whom a Brahmin or a person belonging to the clean Shudra castes cannot accept water. So you see, these lower castes became Galis in modern Bengali as well, because I was always called, because anyone with a dark skin, Kalu is a derogatory term to use for them, because Kalu is looked at as a derogatory word in its first place. Then Kaura. Okay, Kaura is a very famous caste. It's a very distinct caste group. It's a jati with its specific profession. But Kaura means छपरी जैसे हम आज बोलते हैं, बंगाली में छपरियों को Kaura बोला जाता है. But Kaura is a caste with a specific profession. One of the most famous cremation grounds in Kolkata is in a place called Kaura Tola. Or it might be Tola even. Who knows? It might have been distorted into being believed to be Tola. Kalus are okay. Shudra. This means that the Telis are a clean Shudra caste who have the right to give water to a clean Brahmin and can receive priestly services from a clean Brahmin. In popular estimation also, the Telis are held as a Navashakha Shudra caste, but popular imagination has gone a little further. A widely prevalent proverb tells us that the Telis are one of the 9 castes who formed the original Navashakha group of the clean Shudras. Navashakha being interpreted as Nava, 9, Shakha. Oh, that is 9 branches of the clean Shudras. Okay, so this one opinion says Navashakha does not mean new Shakha, it means 9 Shakhas. The Tili movement, however, could not encompass the entire lot of the aspirant Telis. कोई consensus नहीं है कहीं पे. Beyond the circle remained a group of Telis belonging to the Ekadasa subcaste, meaning 11, okay, Ekadash subcaste in the border districts of Midnapur, Bakura and Birbhum, who enjoy the status of Navashakha Shudra without changing the name of the caste. Arey baapre bhai. Oof. In the regions where the Ekadasa Telis are held as Navashakha Shudra, the Dvadasha Telis, oh my god, Dvadasha means 10. The Dvadasha Telis, originally a constituent group of the undivided Teli caste, along with the former, are placed in the rank of the unclean Shudra. These Ekadash Telis may be the remnants of the Telis who, according to Risley, had already acquired the respectable Navashakha status before 1891. Hey bhai, mujhe thoda pani peene do. Oh fuck. We have to be careful, else USA will bomb freedom into us on hearing so much Teli. Given how this caste concept is really tied to one's professions, how is it any different from British names like Smith, Baker, Potter, Porter, etc.? Still they act holier than thou. Yes man, everywhere profession is your surname. Hey Keoda. There are no Goda in Bharat, everyone is Kalua. Chandal, that is Chandal, is used as a gali. Oh, I see. Eta mein shuni nahi. Kalua supremacy. They actually have birth-based nobility. Oh. Okay. Navashakha status. और कितना बाकी है? और 3 पेज. बाप रे. Oh, so you see, I am not at least going to retain too much of these details, right? But the core essence we are going to get from this is that the diversity and caste mobility was absolutely insane in Bengal. And therefore must have been in other places as well. बस ज़्यादा research नहीं हुआ है. Instead बोला गया है कि भाई Brahminical patriarchy चल रहा है. And also this must be used as an argument in favor of Hindutva that see, so much caste mobility was happening. तो आज क्या caste कर रहे हो? Caste का नया नाम होके caste का birth भी हो रहा था. तो आज caste का नाम ही हो सकता है कि IT worker, BTech तुम्हारा caste name हो सकता है, संगीतकार तुम्हारा caste name हो सकता है, अर्थशास्त्री, अर्थनीतिविद ये तुम्हारा caste name हो सकता है if you are an economist. Are Europeans got nation state? Nation means jati, a country for a jati, Czech, Slovak, Slav, all are jatis, and they are so much divided that castes grew into countries, but we didn't do that. Yeah, instead of linguistic lines पे अगर state होता, linguistic के बदले में caste जाति के basis पे अगर state draw होता, तो यहाँ पे मोदी अमित शाह सबको यहाँ पे लाया जाता. So again, that would also be the same thing. Today everyone would say that these castes are outsiders in this. क्या नाम होता उसका? Teli Bongo or something. Poshchim Teli. That's even worse. And they celebrate their hierarchical system, lords, baron, counts, etc. while they lecture us. Yes. So, chalo, last 3 pages. My God. Acquire the respect of Navashakha status before 1891. Yeah. As regards the validation of the new ritual status of the Telis, it is found that techniques adopted by the Telis were more or less similar to those of the Sadgopas. We have seen that Telis enthusiastically participated in temple building in the second half of the 19th century. Like the Sadgopas. ये देखो ये इंसेंटिव स्ट्रक्चर कैसे आज थोड़ा बहुत लौट आया है कि आज भी अभी ममता बनर्जी को भी मंदिर बनाना ही पड़ रहा है अल्टीमेटली. ममता बनर्जी को तृणमूल वालों से बोल कर वो बड़ो माँ का सेलिब्रेशन और बढ़ चढ़ के करवाया जा रहा है. ओके, नहीं तो नहीं होगा. उन लोगों का एक्यूजेशन जो है कि ये लोग एंटी हिंदू है, वो एक्यूजेशन अब उनको पसंद नहीं आ रहा है. ममता बनर्जी इज बिल्डिंग अ जगन्नाथ मंदिर इन आई थिंक दीघा, इन द दीघा एरिया ओनली, नियर द बीचेस एज फार एज आई हर्ड. She started Ganga Aarti on the banks of Ganga in Kolkata. Like the Sadgopa. Okay. So everyone has to build temples. Incentive structure तो यही होगा भाई. Like the Sadgopas, they were able to attract clean Brahmins to officiate as priests in their temples and family functions in exchange of liberal grants of land and various other gifts. Even that is happening today. Okay. तो अच्छा, तुमको इस पर्टिकुलर टेम्पल का कास्ट हायरार्की नहीं फॉलो करना है, खुद का टेम्पल बना लो. यही तब भी हो रहा था. 81 में भी ये हुआ है, 1891 में भी यही हो रहा है. राम मंदिर भी वही है. It has been noted above that Krishnakanta Nandi secured an expert opinion from the Pandits of Navadvip and Tribeni. By the way, non-Bengalis, नवद्वीप से ही वो चैतन्य महाप्रभु का घर नवद्वीप में ही था. ठीक है. तो opinion from the Pandits of Navadvip and Tribeni which conceded the status of a clean Shudra to the Telis. Conceded, okay? They gave up the status of the clean Shudra to the Telis. While the services of the clean Brahmin priests in the temples of the Telis or in their family ceremonies were helpful in establishing the cleanness of the caste at the local level, the expert opinion of the scholars of the two renowned centers of learning was necessary to induce the greater Hindu society to accept the new ritual status for which the Telis aspired. Ritual status is an interesting phrase. कि ritual करने का अधिकार. Besides, the Telis were trying to reform their customs and manners in order to make themselves fit for the clean status. Kanto Babu. So you see, what they should have been instead, they were fighting for the status of cleanliness, where they should have fought for instead saying that there is nothing called clean or unclean, which also some other people did. Kanto Babu is said to have introduced nath or nose ring among women of his caste. Nose ring को नाथ कब से बोला जाता है? नाक छाबी तो बंगाली में है, या फिर it's pronounced as nut, I don't know. Nath or nose ring among the women of his caste, an ornament previously worn only by the Brahmins and higher castes. While discussing the matter, so you see, they kind of took pioneering small steps, जिसका conclusion fruition आज हो सकता है in a complete Hindu unity. While discussing the marriage ceremony of the Telis, Risley observes that the attempt is to approach as closely as possible to the example furnished by the higher castes. Such attempts to rise up to the standard of the higher castes could not have been possible without the active cooperation of the Brahmins, the sole custodians and guardians of the rituals. So Brahmins were kind of collaborating and helping out in this caste mobility, okay? The emergence of the Sadgopa caste, as distinct from that of the Telis, occurred within the traditional framework of Bengali society at a period when none of the technological, political or intellectual developments that are generally used to characterize modernization, quote-unquote modernization, had yet occurred in Bengal. They succeeded in forming themselves into a distinct caste with Nabashakha rank by the second decade of the 19th century. While the history of their growth and development goes back to the second half of the 16th century, Bapre. As landowning agriculturalist people, they were essentially a rural group having little or no communication with the world around. On the other hand, the movements of the aspirant Telis, although begun at the end of the 18th century, took an extensive form in the 19th century, and the Telis consolidated their position as a caste with Nabashakha rank in the 20th century. Unlike the landowning agriculturalist Sadgopas, the Telis rose to prominence mainly as traders and bankers having bases in the rural as well as urban areas. Their occupation required them to be stationed in the towns and business centers. At the end of the 18th century and perhaps also at the beginning of the 19th century, the movements of the Sadgopas and the Telis coincided. But at entirely different stages of development. At that point of time, the former movement had reached the stage of maturity, or nearly so, while the latter was still in a nebulous stage. Apparently, the external factors helping social mobility varied from the case of Sadgopas to that of the Telis. The availability of potentially arable, marginally settled land and the political flux of the Mughal period were the two major factors in the case of the emergence of the Sadgopas. In Gopbhum and in northern and western Midnapur, they established settlements and became the dominant group. As a dominant group, they took the advantage of the political fluidity and acquired political power. It is the combination of economic domination and the political power that enabled the Sadgopas to form themselves into a distinct caste and achieve the respectable Navashakha status. Yes, और ये पहले क्यों नहीं होगा? पहले क्या इकोनॉमी नहीं था या पहले पॉलिटिक्स नहीं था? हर जब से सिविलाइजेशन हुआ है तब से ही पॉलिटिक्स और इकोनॉमी है ही. धर्म और धर्म नहीं, अर्थ और राज्य हमेशा से ही है. तो ये कैसे हम क्लेम कर सकते हैं कि 4000, 5000 या 6000 साल पहले या इवन प्री आइस एज में जो कास्ट हायरार्की है वही आज भी फॉलो करना है? कौन कास्ट में घुस रहा है, किसको हम अपर कास्ट मान रहे हैं, किसको हम लोअर कास्ट मान रहे हैं? ऑल दैट इज रेलेवेंट टू जस्ट दैट एराज पॉलिटिक्स एंड इकोनॉमिक्स. तो या The prosperity of the Telis was largely due to the economic opportunities created by the East India Company in the 18th century and the economic policies of the British Indian government in the 19th century. Almost all over Bengal, the Telis availed themselves of the opportunities, and a segment of the Telis became rich traders. Some of these people invested in land and became zamindars and jotdars. It was a prosperous section. Now, the problem with not having a Hindutva awareness is that they became zamindars and jotdars, but then prevented other people from succeeding in life and prevented the Bengali Hindu refugees from even drinking the leftover water from boiled rice. That is the problem of these people. It was a prosperous section of the Telis who organized various separatist movements in the 19th century. Separatist not meaning ke alag desh hai, theek hai? Separatist meaning separating from your caste identity. Separatist movements in the 19th century, including the Tili movement. Initially, these movements were regional in character, but the facilities offered by modern technology and developments in the system of communication must have been enormously helpful in consolidating the various movements diffused all over Bengal into one particular movement, namely the Tili movement. Modern methods were also used. A caste society was formed and booklets, journals, etc. were published in order to promote the cause of the Tilis, who subsequently came to be accepted as a distinct caste with respectable Navashakha status. Although the Sadgopa movement and the Tili movement were facilitated by variant circumstances, both cases show certain common features. First of all, we have the factor of total change of occupation. Right. Total change of occupation. The role of this factor in social mobility, however, is not difficult to understand in the context of the traditional Indian society. The role of this factor in social mobility, however, is not difficult to understand in the context of the traditional Indian society. Each caste was invariably associated with a particular occupation which fixed it to a particular rank in the caste hierarchy. Depending वो काम का गुरुत्व मतलब importance कितना है society में, है ना? तो जिस प्रोफेशन का ज़रूरत जब तो जैसे कि टाइपराइटर का प्रोफेशन चला गया, तो अगर टाइपराइटर कास्ट है कोई, तो उस टाइपराइटर कास्ट का भी हायरार्की में चेंज हो जाएगा, क्योंकि अब हर कोई टाइपिंग में इतना फास्ट है. टाइपिंग का स्किल किसी को सर्विस देता ही नहीं है, एक्सेप्ट स्टेनोग्राफर्स ऑफ कोर्स, करके टाइप करते हैं. तो दस ऑक्यूपेशन, जीविका, with which a caste came to be traditionally associated was a major identification mark for the caste, although the occupation assigned to it might not have been its sole or a major occupation. Under these circumstances, total abandonment of the traditional occupation by a caste or a section of it was of great social significance. If the member of a caste or a section of it could manage to dissociate themselves totally from the occupation which identified it with a particular social rank and switch over to a comparatively lucrative and prestigious one, it might become easier for them to project a new image of themselves. Incentivize not being fucking Garib or not being Dalits. Exactly. The earliest phase of the mobility movements of the Sadgopas and Tilis is marked by total abandonment of the occupations of their respective parent castes and adaptation of new occupations. In the cases of the Sadgopas and the Tilis, their new occupations helped them to achieve economic prosperity and own landed property as zamindars and jotdars. In the Sadgopa belts, the Sadgopas formed the landowning dominant group. Along with their trade and commerce, the Tilis eagerly invested in land and became substantial zamindars and jotdars almost all over Bengal. It is the economic prosperity, particularly ownership of land, that determined the position of these castes in society. Ownership of land enabled them to have a direct control over the life of the people in their respective areas and made them pivots of rural society. It thus helped them to enhance their prestige and acquire power. The political power of Sadgopas was based on their position as the dominant landowning group. Reading this paper makes me understand and respect RSS, BJP, Hindutva even more. They understood this problem even better and have come up with actual solutions and have applied them. With the growth of their prosperity, power and prestige, the Sadgopas and the Tilis tried to break away from the parent castes and establish new castes with higher ritual status. To this end, they were helped by the ritual specialist Brahmins and Pandits, who played a very important role in securing social sanction for the higher ritual status of the aspirant castes. Okay, Brahmin approval bhi de raha tha yahan pe. They acted as priests in temples of the Sadgopas and the Tilis, helped them in reforming their manners and customs so as to make them fit for the status of the clean Shudras, and manufactured myths or gave expert opinion which sought to establish the cleanness of the aspirant castes. तो कोई किसी को भी इतना इसलिए फुदकना नहीं चाहिए based on what family they are now in. One thing becomes fairly clear though through these two case studies, that economic prosperity, particularly in the form of ownership of land, is a crucial factor in a movement for mobility. Okay, yeah. Whatever the aspirant groups have done for the achievement of higher social status was based on their economic prosperity. A very important point in the process of mobility is the ability to employ ritual specialists of the right kind who play a vital role in securing social sanction for the higher ritual status of the aspirant castes. This factor also invariably depends on the economic power of the aspirant groups. Buttenstein thinks that in medieval India, quote-unquote medieval India, units of mobility were individual families. Okay, units of mobility were individual families, not the entire caste. And there was little need for corporate mobility, meaning the mobility of the entire caste. Modern technological facilities such as printing press, which are required for corporate mobility movements, as well as the political need for those facilities, came into existence only recently. While admitting the role of technological facilities in modern corporate caste movements, as evident in the case of the Tilis, and the political need for such movements in modern times, it should be pointed out, as M.N. Srinivas has done, that Stein's observations regarding pre-modern social mobility are based on a misconception, because the need for corporate mobility has always existed in the caste system itself. In every part of India, it was necessary for the mobile family or a section of a caste to break with the parent caste and claim a new identity. To that end, it was necessary to form a separate endogamous unit. To that end, it was necessary to form a separate endogamous unit. Having hypergamous relations with the parent caste was only a second best. Further, even apart from marriage, a mobile family or a section of a caste had to become a caste, for only then could its relations with other castes be defined. Srinivas's theory is applicable to the case of the Sadgopas and the Tilis. However, our case studies show that the dynamics of corporate mobility admit of more factors than the ones Srinivas mentions. The Sadgopas broke with the parent caste, the Gopas, and the Gopas, and formed a new caste. क्या बात है? Their leaders, the Rajas of Amragarh, Karnagarh, and Narayangarh, joined the aspirant Gopas in their ambition to form a new caste with enhanced social status. क्या भाई? ये तो मतलब सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट के जैसा है. नया फ़ोन खरीदो, डालो चार्जर लगा दो. एनहांस सोशल स्टेटस कितना ट्वीकेबल है, कस्टमाइज कर दिया कास्ट सिस्टम को. एम्बिशन टू फॉर्म अ न्यू कास्ट विथ एनहांस सोशल स्टेटस. In such a case of collective mobility, the needs which have always existed in the caste system must have been an important factor. But the incentive for collective movement, however, came from the fact that as the landowning dominant group, the Sadgopas, or a large majority of them, succeeded in achieving a sense of corporate solidarity. Okay, meaning entire caste ka solidarity with regard to internal as well as external prestige. This enabled them to sever connections with the parent caste and form a new caste with higher social status. तो kind of a conclusion क्या है कि जब कोई इंसेंटिव नहीं मिल रहा है कास्ट चेंज करने का, तब वो उस कास्ट में ही रह रहे हैं ओके सालों से. जिसका मतलब है दे आर गेटिंग बेनिफिट ऑफ बीइंग दैट सो कॉल्ड लो कास्ट. वेन एवर देर आर इंसेंटिव्स टू किक आउट टू कम आउट ऑफ दैट कास्ट, दे आर डूइंग सो. क्योंकि कौन भोसड़ी वाला कंसेंशुअली मान लेगा कि हाँ भाई मैं तुमसे बड़ा लोअर फैमिली से हूँ, कितना मजे का बात है. However, our case studies show that the dynamics of corporate mobility admit हाँ ये तो हो गया. हाँ तो shit कहाँ तक पड़ा? In such a case of collective mobility, collective mobility, the needs which have always existed in the caste system must have been an important factor. हाँ ये तो हो गया. But the incentive for collective movement, however, came from the fact that as the land, ये तो हो गया, अरे पेपर ही खत्म हो गया. Did I read the last paragraph? I was so thinking so many other things. New caste with higher social status. एक मिनट, last sentence सिर्फ पढ़ लेते हैं. तो but the incentive for collective movement, however, came from the fact that as the landowning dominant group, the Sadgopas, or a large majority of them, succeeded in achieving a sense of corporate solidarity, meaning pura caste ka solidarity with regard to internal as well as external prestige. This enabled them to sever connections with the parent caste and form a new caste with a higher social status. Yeah, the same can be said with regard to the emergence of the Tili caste. It is the achievement of the minimum degree of social power and acceptance of this power and of the material attributes which enable corporate groups meaning caste groups, big groups, to bargain for this power. Bargain का option ही खुला है, मतलब caste mobility is a broad fact, okay, daylight का fact, okay, it's a clear cut fact. Bargaining हो रहा है भाई, क्या rank होगा मेरे hierarchy में. Of this power and of the material attributes which enable corporate groups to bargain for this power that constituted a critical element in the break from a stationary social position within a hierarchy to a new dynamism upward. The history of the Sadgopas and the Tilis shows how this critical element was achieved, and as such it is a case study of the practical methods for acquiring social mobility within the caste system in Bengal. This was a fun paper. Both of them were very important papers. I will upload them separately as videos as well.
जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते